everyone, my name is Ashley. I hope you're all doing well, and in my video today I'm going to be doing a book review for The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. This is a YA contemporary book that was released in 2016 that tells the story of Eden, or Edie, who has recently, at the beginning of this book, she was raped by her brother's best friend, and this tells the story of her years through high school as she changes and her journey with that and the aftermath of what happened to her. So this book talk is going to have spoilers, so if you haven't read this book, I'm going to start off with the spoiler-free section and then I'll put the book down once I start talking about the spoilery section. So like I said, this book follows her through her 4 years of high school. The rape actually happens to her in her freshman year of high school, and it follows her every single year, and there is a whole section of the book dedicated to each year of her life. She does change a lot throughout this book. She eventually turns into basically somebody completely different by the end of the novel, and she's not the only one who is affected by her change. You know, her best friends and her boyfriend and her brother and her parents are also affected by the way she is changing, and while they notice that she's becoming different, they never actually address the reason why, because they don't know what happened to her. She didn't tell anybody about the rape, and so they just assume that she's just changing and going through hormones basically. And so it really talks about not only how she is affected, but how the other members of her family and friends are affected as well. I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars, and the reason for that is because I don't think I was as affected as I was supposed to be by this book. So I know that it's supposed to be really poignant, really striking, really just emotional and inducing all these different kinds of emotions basically through these sorts of situations where she's not the best person that she can be. And I know that's supposed to mean something to the reader, and that's supposed to make readers feel a lot for Edie, but for me it didn't make me feel that way. Just because she's changing a lot and keeps going through a lot and having bad things happen to her and doing bad things, that doesn't necessarily constitute a emotional or gripping book. I mean, yes, a lot of things happen to her, but that doesn't mean that the writing in it is great, and while things happen, they just aren't written in a way that is very emotional. It makes me feel affected by the things that happen to her. And if I can't connect with her and feel emotional reading about her journey, probably a lot of other people can't. Although maybe, you know, my personal experiences, because they're so personal, maybe that makes it seem more unrealistic, the fact that she wasn't as emotional as she could have been. That might have affected my reading of it, but maybe somebody who hasn't gone through those experiences might be more affected by it, because it might seem like more of a shock to them basically, because they've never been through it. And so hearing these thoughts that Eden has and seeing the way she's treating everybody and everybody else is treating her might be more of a shock factor for somebody who hasn't been through that versus somebody who has, and it doesn't come as a surprise to them. So I think, unfortunately, the author used that element a lot to try and create a very powerful and impactful story. However, the writing of the scenes and the writing of the character itself just wasn't great. Even though a lot happens, it just wasn't great writing, which is why I ended up giving it a surprising 3 out of 5 stars. I really went into this thinking I was going to give it at the very least 4 stars. I thought this was going to be a 4.5, 5-star book for me, but it just wasn't, because it was lacking that really deep and honestly good writing style to me, and that's just unfortunate. I would have given it a lower rating than 3 stars, but I do think that there are so many scenes of this where Edie says things going through her mind that were really identifiable to me. There were very particular lines that I was like, oh, yep, I get that. You know, like, that's something that makes sense to me. So because of those lines that were just so honest and true to what that character had gone through, I think that those particular very, very specific lines were well done. And so because of that experience of those lines, I gave it the 3 stars instead of 2 stars. I only would have given it 1 star if I just hadn't finished it basically. So that's it for the non-spoilery section. I'm just going to spend a little bit of time talking about some stuff that involves spoilers. So I'm going to put the book down, and if you don't want to know about any spoilers, stop watching, read the book, and then come back to this section. So I was really not happy with the way that her family and her friends treated her. They never asked Edie what happened, why she was changing. They never tried to understand her. They really just brushed her off or got mad at her. And that was really, really wrong. That was just so wrong on so many levels. And I know that these sorts of books about rape and rape culture are supposed to give different perspectives over different things and different ways that a rape plays out for people. And I know that maybe this is the way that it happened for somebody. I understand that. But with so many other books out there that are so great, like Speak and Some Boys and all these other really great books revolving around rape culture, to have something like this where nobody asked her anything was really frustrating. I will say though that she never said anything. So how are people around her supposed to know something's wrong if she doesn't say anything? I get that. I went through that. I didn't say anything. So again, how was anybody supposed to know anything was wrong with me? I buried it and just shoved it aside. And you know, you can't assume people are going to be psychic and just know what happens to you. But for Edie specifically, the morning after, not only is there blood like all over her bedding, but she has bruises and scars and stuff all over her, and her mom is just like thinking it's a really heavy period and is like, oh, don't be embarrassed, your brother and your dad will never see, it's fine. And she doesn't take a minute to just shut up and listen to her daughter. And that is so frustrating. That is so bad. And again, I know that there's probably girls out there who go through that, whose parents just assume it's something else and don't ever let them talk, and the opportunity to say something is completely gone. It is missed. I know that that happens, but I didn't want to read about it in a book. I didn't want to hear about somebody being that ignorant. It felt fictional. It felt like it was forced, and that the author just did that so that we could hear the rest of these 4 years of Edie changing. It just felt like a plot device, basically, and I'm just not okay with that. I wasn't a fan of it. I, again, understand that maybe it's just a bigger part of Edie's bigger experience, and that's one thing, but it just was really frustrating and a big letdown. And again, it happened throughout the book. She kept having bad things happen to her. She eventually just has, you know, a bunch of meaningless one-night stands and a bunch of, you know, sexual relationships that don't mean anything, and that's her way of, like, harmfully coping. But eventually people judge her for it, and people, including the people closest to her, and it was just so sad. It just honestly broke my heart to see that happen to her. And I know that's the point. I'm supposed to be brokenhearted when I read this book, but I don't care. That doesn't make me like it anymore, and I didn't. For those reasons, I just wasn't a fan of it. It took way too long to have any payoff. The end of it with Joshua and with everything with her rapist, Kevin, happening with somebody else, and it just all happened so quickly. It all happened in the span of like 15 pages. And to have spent all the rest of those 300-something pages on 4 years of her life and only spend 15 minutes talking about when she finally tells her brother and when Kevin's little sister finally realizes what happened to her, to only give that much time to it just seems like an unjust thing to do. And you're left with so many questions at the end too. You don't know so many things that ended up happening to Edie. I understand that sometimes it's nice to break away from the conventional ending of a book and leave some questions unanswered. Fine, don't put a ribbon on it, whatever. But sometimes books need it, and I think that I would have been happier with it knowing a little bit more about what happened. Like, there are just some things that I want to know, honestly, and I'm really frustrated that I don't get to know them. So that's really, really irritating to me. And it wasn't just that the subject matter of a rape made it hard to read or heartbreaking. Yes, obviously that's true. There are a lot of things that could be triggers if you have gone through a rape that would trigger you. So if that's the case for you, stay away from this book. But I understand that that makes it heartbreaking and hard-hitting. But again, having a bunch of hard-hitting things happen doesn't constitute a good book. While it was hard to read about Edie just falling apart and doing drugs and having these bad relationships and just changing herself completely because of what happened to her, even though it was supposed to be something heartbreaking, it just wasn't done well, honestly. It was rushed. It just all felt like a plot device, and that is really unfortunate. I would have liked to have a lot more time dedicated to some character building and some other relationships and some other aspects of her life. It just felt like it was a little bit lacking altogether, and it's really unfortunate because, like I said, I was expecting to give this book a way higher rating than I did. And that's it. Those are my thoughts and opinions on The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. If you've read this and have some opinions on it that are either the same or different, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to talk to it more with you. Or if you're interested in reading it based on what you just saw me talk about, let me know as well. And I'd love to talk more about it if you'd like a little bit more information. And that's it for this video. Thanks you guys so much for watching, and happy reading. Bye!